Ember Porter never imagined that someone was watching her every night from the penthouse of New York's most expensive building. But Dominic Dean was there, binoculars in hand and heart racing, trying to understand why that salsa dancer had kept him awake for 3 weeks. What he didn't know was that the next morning she would be caring for the same orphan children who held the only clues about his missing siblings. Life had such cruel ironies. "Mr. Dean, you're going to wear a hole in the floor pacing like that," grumbled Oliver the butler, adjusting his tie while watching his employer walk back and forth across the penthouse living room. "And those binoculars won't make the young lady dance any better." Dominic stopped at the panoramic window, chest tight. Down below, the colourful lights of Sergio's club flickered like fallen stars, and he knew that in a few minutes Ember would take the stage. 3 weeks. 3 damn weeks since he discovered that the woman who left him mesmerized every night worked at the Sunshine Children's Foundation, where he hoped to find information about the siblings he never knew. "It's not about the dancing, Oliver," he murmured, running his hand through his tousled brown hair. "It's just, how do I approach her without looking like a crazy millionaire stalker?" The butler, a man in his early 60s with the patience of a saint and a sharp tongue, served coffee and sighed. "You could try being honest. Have you thought of that?" "Honest?" Dominic laughed bitterly. "Hi, my name is Dominic Dean. I inherited a fortune I don't deserve. I live in this $20 million penthouse and, oh, I've been watching you dance every night because I'm desperate to find my family." Imagine how well that would go over. Oliver rolled his eyes with the elegance of someone who had served spoiled rich people for decades. Then go in disguise, pretend to be poor. What could go wrong? Everything. Absolutely everything, thought Dominic. But the idea began to make sense in a twisted and dangerous way. He looked at his reflection in the window. Expensive Italian suits, Swiss watch that cost more than a regular car, and that patrician air that screamed, "born with a silver spoon," from miles away. "You know this is crazy, right?" "You're a dean," replied Oliver, smiling sideways. "Craziness is a family tradition." The next morning, Dominic woke up with butterflies in his stomach and a half-crazy plan in his head. First step, find clothes that wouldn't betray his bank account. Second step, invent a convincing identity. Third step, not die of embarrassment in the process. Oliver had borrowed clothes from the gardener, faded jeans, simple t-shirt and sneakers that had seen better days. Dominic looked at himself in the guest room mirror, couldn't use the master suite, too luxurious, and barely recognized himself. Perfect, he lied to himself. Totally convincing. The Sunshine Children's Foundation was in Brooklyn, 45 minutes by car from Manhattan, or by subway, as Dominic would soon discover. He parked Oliver's borrowed motorcycle 2 blocks away and walked to the colorful gate of the institution, taking a deep breath. The sound of children laughing echoed through the courtyard, and Dominic felt that tightness in his chest that always came when he thought about the childhood he never had. Not with his adoptive parents, of course. Richard and Margaret Dean had given him everything money could buy, but they couldn't buy siblings. They couldn't buy the feeling of belonging. "Can I help you?" Dominic turned and almost choked. There she was, Ember, even more beautiful up close, with those bright brown eyes and the smile that made the world seem like a better place. She wore a yellow floral blouse and jeans, her curly hair tied in a messy ponytail, and there was a blue paint stain on her left cheek. He stuttered like a lovesick teenager. "I wanted information about children." "Information about children?" Ember tilted her head, curious. "Do you want to adopt?" "No, I mean not exactly." Dominic felt his face heat up. "It's just that I'm looking for my siblings, twins. They were adopted as babies, and I thought maybe—" Ember's smile softened, and she invited him in with a gentle gesture. "Come in. Let's talk calmly." As they walked through the colorful courtyard, Dominic couldn't stop looking at her. Every movement was natural, spontaneous, real, so different from the women in his world, always posing, always calculating. "By the way," she said, turning with a mischievous smile, "you have paint on your nose." Dominic brought his hand to his face, confused, and Ember laughed in that way that made his heart jump. Just kidding, but now you do. Discovering that lying about being poor was harder than running $1 million company was a lesson Dominic learned the hard way. Paying $3 for a hot dog he thought cost $30. "Thanks for the change," he said to the street vendor, looking confused at the coins in his hand. "What change, buddy?" The man laughed. "You gave me exact change. $3. Ember, who had insisted on accompanying him to the food truck after he mentioned never having tried a real New York hot dog, line number 47 of the week, watched everything with that smile that made him awkward. "Dominic, are you sure you grew up here in New York?" "Of course," he lied, biting the hot dog and trying not to make a face at the grease. "Why do you ask?" "Because you just asked if the hot dog accepts credit cards," Ember laughed, shaking her head. "And you called the pretzel an interesting ethnic snack." Damn, Dominic swallowed hard, desperately searching for a plausible excuse. "It's just that I lived away for a long time. Boston, studying business, management of things." "Management of things," she repeated, amused. "How specific." At that moment, Dominic's phone rang with the personalized ringtone for company calls, an instrumental version of New York, New York. He looked at the name on the screen. Victoria Hayes, PR, and quickly declined the call. "Work?" asked Ember. "Telemarketing," he improvised. "They call all the time. Very annoying." Lie number 48. They walked through the street fair, and Dominic tried to seem comfortable, but every step was a new trap. He offered to carry Ember's shopping and almost dropped everything when he saw the prices. $15 fed a family for 2 days. In his penthouse, a bottle of wine cost $200. "You know what I like most about the fair?" said Ember, stopping at a flower stand. "It's that everyone knows each other here. Mrs. Martinez watched me grow up, mister. Johnson always gives a discount when things get tight." "Tight how?" "Well, when money runs short." She looked at him as if he'd asked if the moon was made of cheese. "You've never been strapped for cash?" Dominic thought about the $50,000 he'd spent last month just on entertainment. "Oh yes, of course, very tight, always." Ember smiled and chose a bouquet of wildflowers, simple, colorful, fragrant. When Dominic saw how much she paid, $5, he almost offered to buy all the flowers at the stand. He controlled himself in time. "They're for the children at the foundation," she explained. "They love having flowers in the classroom. It makes the environment more cheerful." With every word, Dominic fell more in love, and lied more too. Back at the foundation, Ember showed him the old files while the children played in the courtyard. Dominic pretended to look for information about his siblings, but really just wanted an excuse to stay close to her. "What names do you remember?" asked Ember, flipping through yellowed folders. "Dominic, David, and Daniel, maybe?" he invented. He had no idea what his brothers' real names were. "Triplets, then. How interesting," she murmured, concentrating. "Here are some records from 1992. Look, Dominic Harrison, David Harrison." Dominic's heart stopped. Harrison was indeed his biological mother's surname. And the third, Daniel Michael Harrison. Ember looked at him with bright eyes. "This could be them." "Could be," he agreed, pretending emotion when he was actually genuinely moved. "Finally, a real clue." "You know what I think is most beautiful?" said Ember, closing the folder. "Even without knowing each other, you chose the same path, looking for family. That's true love." Dominic felt a lump in his throat. If she knew he had family to spare, a family that loved him but had never filled that void, what would she think? That afternoon, he helped the children with homework, played soccer in the courtyard, and heard stories that broke his heart. Abandoned children, like he had been. The difference was that he had been lucky. "You're cool, Uncle Dominic," said Tommy, an 8-year-old boy with a gap-toothed smile. "Are you coming back tomorrow?" "If Miss Ember lets me." "Of course I will," she replied, smiling. "The children liked you, and so did I." Dominic's heart raced. As he left the foundation, his phone rang again. This time it was Oliver. "Boss, Miss Victoria is here at home asking questions. She wants to know where you've been disappearing to." Make something up, whispered Dominic, looking back to make sure Ember wasn't listening. And buy simple clothes. I need to keep up this disguise. How simple. Poor simple. Not millionaire trying to look poor simple. Got it, Oliver laughed. We'll go to the thrift shop tomorrow morning. When Dominic hung up, Ember was standing at the door, watching him with a curious expression. Everything okay? Perfectly, he smiled, putting away his phone. Just arranging a side job. What kind of side job? He thought quickly. Pizza. Delivery. Line number? He had lost count. The first time Dominic tried to ride the subway, he nearly caused an international incident. He didn't know he had to signal for the train to stop, thought he could pay with a credit card, and asked if there was Wi-Fi. The worst part? Ember was right beside him, trying not to laugh. Dominic, are you sure you've ridden the subway before? She asked, helping him find a seat on the crowded car. Of course, he lied, holding onto the pole as if his life depended on it. It's just been a while. How long? 20 years, more or less, thought Dominic. The last time he had used public transportation was never. The subway swayed through New York streets, and Dominic tried not to think about the helicopter parked on the penthouse helipad, or the private driver who was probably wondering where he had disappeared to, or the fact that he was there, squeezed between a lady with shopping bags and a guy listening to hip-hop at full volume because he wanted to impress a woman with his authenticity. Where do you live again? Asked Ember, curious. Panic. Dominic had memorized a fake address in Brooklyn, but didn't know how to get there. On Rose Street, number 63. Rose Street? Ember frowned. I don't know that street in Brooklyn. It's small, he improvised, sweating cold. Very hidden. What a coincidence, she smiled. I pass through there every week going to salsa class and I've never seen it. Shit, shit, shit. It's because it's behind the bakery. Which bakery? Mr. John's bakery. Oh, John from Golden Crust Bakery, exclaimed Ember. I know it. He makes the best bagels in the neighborhood. You must wake up to that wonderful smell every morning. Dominic smiled weakly. He had no idea who Mr. John was, but apparently he had just become his neighbor. They got off downtown, and Dominic followed Ember through the busy streets, trying not to look like a lost tourist. She took him to a school supply store where she needed to buy supplies for the foundation children. It's for the reading project, she explained, choosing notebooks and colored pencils. The children are learning to write their own stories. Dominic looked at the prices and almost had a heart attack. $15 for a set of colored pencils. At his company, they spent that on paper clips per day. Let me help, he said, grabbing a basket and filling it with supplies. Dominic, you don't need to, protested Ember. I know you're also strapped for cash. I'm not that strapped, he lied, grabbing more notebooks. Besides, it's for the children. At the register, the bill came to $140. Dominic thought it was cheap and had to control himself not to buy more things. Ember, on the other hand, seemed genuinely touched. You're very generous, she said, smiling in a way that made his stomach do somersaults. The children will be so happy. It's nothing, he replied, feeling guilty about the lie and proud of having done something that made her happy at the same time. Leaving the store, they bumped into an elegant woman Dominic immediately recognized, Victoria Hayes, his press secretary. She looked him up and down, clearly shocked by the simple clothes and company. Dominic, she said, incredulous, what are you doing here? The world stopped. Ember looked between the two, confused, and Dominic felt sweat running down his back. I think you've mistaken me for someone else, he said, forcing a smile. My name is, Dom. Victoria's eyes widened, clearly not believing what she was hearing. Dom, she repeated sardonically. Dom from where exactly? Dom from Queens, he improvised, desperate. I work with deliveries. Deliveries, Victoria repeated, her smile becoming dangerous. How interesting. Ember watched the strange exchange, clearly noticing something was wrong. Do you know each other? She asked. No, said Dominic and Victoria at the same time. I mean yes, Victoria corrected maliciously. Dom here has made some deliveries for me. Haven't you, Dom? Dominic wanted to hide underground. "A few times," he muttered. "Well, I have to go," said Victoria, but before leaving she whispered in Dominic's ear, "We need to talk, urgent," and she left, leaving Dominic wanting to emigrate to another country. "What a strange woman," commented Ember. "It seemed like you had something serious to resolve." "Nothing much," he lied. "Just work issues." "Delivery work must be complicated," said Ember innocently. That night at Sergio's club, Dominic sat at a dark table in the back of the establishment, watching Ember dance. She wore a red flowing dress and low heels, her hair loose swaying to the rhythm of the salsa. She was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. "First time here?" asked someone behind him. Dominic turned and saw a dark, handsome man with a charming smile and possessive air. He must have been about 35 and wore a tight dress shirt that showed off his muscles. "I'm Sergio," said the man, extending his hand. "I own the place." "Dom," replied Dominic, shaking the offered hand. "I know," smiled Sergio, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "I've been watching you observe Ember every night. She's special, isn't she?" "She's a great dancer," said Dominic, cautiously. "She's much more than that." Sergio sat down without being invited. "She's my ex-fiancée, and I intend to win her back." Dominic's heart sank. "Ex-fiancée? We broke up a year ago," said Sergio, lighting a cigarette. "But it was just a silly fight. Soon enough she'll come back to me." "What if she doesn't want to?" Sergio gave a humorless laugh. "She'll want to. She always did. It's just a matter of eliminating the competition." The threat was clear. Dominic swallowed hard. "I'm not competition. Every man who looks at Ember is competition," said Sergio, standing up. "But don't worry. I know how to take care of my interests." When he walked away, Dominic realized things had become much more complicated. Dominic's lie began to crumble the exact moment Oliver appeared at the foundation disguised as a food delivery guy, wearing a Yankees cap and speaking with an exaggerated New York accent that fooled no one. "Good morning, beautiful lady," said the butler to Ember, forcing the accent. "I brought lunch for Dominic." "I mean Dom." Ember looked at the thermal aluminum lunch container and then at Dominic, who was white as a sheet. "What luxury, Dom," she commented. "A delivery guy who brings warm lunch to work. What a good company you work for." "Yeah, they take good care of their employees," stuttered Dominic, glaring at Oliver. "And what an elegant delivery guy," continued Ember, observing Oliver's impeccable posture. "He looks more like a butler." "Butler?" Oliver laughed forcedly. "What's that, miss? I've been a delivery guy my whole life. I delivered things, many things, delivery guy things." Dominic wanted to disappear. After Oliver left, making discreet bows that confirmed all suspicions, Ember kept looking at Dominic in a way that made him nervous. "Everything okay?" he asked. "You're a very interesting person, Dom," she said, tilting her head. "A delivery guy who never rides the subway, who pays for hot dogs like they're caviar, who has a personal delivery guy. Ember, and who showed up here looking for siblings, but seems like he's never looked for anyone in his life." Dominic's heart raced. She was getting suspicious. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" Ember smiled, but there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Then explain to me how you don't know Rose Street where you say you live, don't know the price of anything, and yesterday called a taco a regional wrap." Shit. Had he done that? "It's just that I—" "Look, Dom," she interrupted, sighing. "I don't know who you really are, but I know you're not who you say you are, and that's okay. Everyone has their secrets." "Ember, I just don't want to be deceived," she said, looking into his eyes. "I was deceived once by someone I loved. I don't want to go through that again." The pain in her voice broke Dominic's heart. He wanted to tell her everything, but how to explain without seeming crazy? "Hi, I'm actually a millionaire, and I pretended to be poor because I fell in love with you watching you dance from my penthouse. I would never deceive you about something important," he said, and it was the truth. About feelings, about what he felt for her, he would never lie. "Then tell me who you really are." Dominic took a deep breath. It was now or never. "My name really is Dominic, and I really am looking for my siblings, but I—" At that moment, Tommy ran up to them, shouting, "Miss Ember! Miss Ember! Buddy escaped!" Buddy was the Foundation's golden retriever mix, a smart dog the children adored and who had become the place's official mascot. The news of his escape caused general panic. "How did he escape?" asked Ember, worried. "He saw a cat in the street and jumped the gate," explained little Sophia, crying. "I tried to hold him, but he was too strong." Okay, said Ember, hugging the children. "Well, look for him. Dom, can you?" "Of course," replied Dominic immediately. "Well, find Buddy." The search lasted 3 hours. Dominic, Ember, and the children went through the entire neighborhood, shouting the dog's name, asking neighbors, looking on every corner. It was during this search that Dominic saw up close the reality of the neighborhood where Ember lived. Simple houses, some without plaster, streets without pavement that turned to mud in the rain, children playing barefoot, entire families surviving on less money than he spent on one meal. "Life is hard here," commented Ember, noticing that he observed everything attentively. "But we help each other. When someone needs something, everyone collaborates." "How do you do it?" he asked, genuinely curious. "Do what? Keep hope, joy, even with so much difficulty." Ember stopped walking and looked at him with affection. "Because we have each other," she said simply. "Money is good, but it's not everything. Love, friendship, family, that's what really matters." Dominic felt a lump in his throat. His whole life had been surrounded by luxury but empty of real connections. There, on those simple streets, he had found more humanity in 1 week than in 32 years of life. They found Buddy 2 blocks ahead, stuck in a fence after chasing the cat halfway across the neighborhood. The dog was dirty, tired, but happy to see his favorite humans. "Buddy!" shouted the children in chorus, running to hug the animal. "Are you okay, boy?" asked Dominic, petting the dog. Buddy licked his face, making him laugh. "He likes you," observed Ember, smiling. "Buddy is kind of suspicious of strangers. Maybe I'm not so strange after all." That night, Ember didn't go dancing. She stayed at the Foundation, organizing a surprise party to celebrate Buddy's return. Dominic helped with the decorations, played with the children, and for the first time in a long time, felt truly useful. "Thank you," said Ember, when the children finally went to sleep. "Today you were a hero. I didn't do anything special." "You did." She approached him, eyes shining. "You took care of the children like they were yours. You looked for Buddy like he was your dog, and you didn't complain once about being here instead of working." "I prefer being here," he said honestly. "Why?" "Because here I am, myself." It was the truest thing he had said since he started the charade. Ember came closer, and for a moment Dominic thought she was going to kiss him, but then she stopped, hesitant. "Dom, before anything happens between us, I need you to be honest with me, completely honest." "Ember, promise." Dominic looked into her eyes and felt the weight of all the lies. He promised he would tell her everything. He promised he would find a way to make it work. "I promise." And at that moment, without them knowing, from the other side of the window, Sergio watched everything with a phone in his hand, recording every second of the conversation. The Foundation's block party should have been the perfect night. Decorations with colorful streamers, typical food made by volunteer mothers, square dance rehearsed by the children, and Dominic finally ready to tell Ember the whole truth. But like every well-intentioned plan, it went to hell the moment Victoria Hayes appeared with a news crew and a smile that promised destruction. "Good evening, everyone," she announced, megaphone in hand. "I'm here for a special story about how the rich amuse themselves by deceiving the poor." The Foundation's courtyard fell silent. Dominic felt his blood freeze. "What is she talking about?" whispered Ember, confused. "I present to you Dominic Dean," continued Victoria, pointing at him, "heir to Dean Clean Energy, owner of a $200 million fortune, who for a month has been amusing himself by pretending to be poor to win over our dear Ember." The world collapsed. Ember looked at Dominic with an expression of shock and betrayal that he would never forget. The children seemed confused, the volunteers murmured among themselves, and the cameras captured every second of the public humiliation. "Is it true?" asked Ember, voice trembling. "Ember, I can explain. Is it true?" she repeated louder. Dominic looked around. All the people he had learned to love stared at him with disappointment. There was no way to deny it anymore. "Yes," he said quietly, "it's true." The slap Ember gave him echoed throughout the courtyard. "You liar!" she screamed, tears streaming down her face. "How could you? How could you play with me like this?" "Ember, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" She laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. "That you thought it was fun to pretend to be poor, that I was an interesting social experiment, that you laughed at me behind my back." "Never," protested Dominic, desperate. "I never laughed at you. I love you." "Love?" Victoria laughed sarcastically. "What love, Dominic? You don't even know this woman for real." "Shut up, Victoria," exploded Dominic. "This is between me and her." "No, it's not," said Ember, wiping her tears and regaining composure, "because there is no us. There never was. It was all a lie." She turned to the children, who watched everything without understanding. "Children, the party's over. Let's go inside." "Miss Ember," called Tommy, pulling at her skirt hem, "isn't Uncle Dom coming here any more?" Dominic felt his heart shatter. "No, sweetie," replied Ember, without looking at Dominic. "He's not coming any more." "But I like him. I liked him too," she whispered. While Ember led the children inside, Dominic stood in the empty courtyard, with Victoria and the reporters still filming his personal destruction. "Satisfied?" he asked the press secretary. "Very," she replied, putting away the microphone. "Now you can go back to your world and forget this ridiculous phase." "Why did you do this?" "Because you were losing yourself," said Victoria, softening her voice. "That woman was going to ruin you, Dominic. She was going to take advantage of you. You don't know Ember." "I know women like her," Victoria retorted. "Poor, ambitious, who see a rich man and think they've won the lottery. Ember's not like that." "They're all like that," said Victoria, touching his arm. "Come home. Come back to your world. Come back to me." Dominic looked at her with disgust. "Never," he said. "He'll never come back to you." And he left there, leaving behind not only the woman he loved, but also the only time he had felt truly alive. The following week, Victoria's story reverberated throughout New York. "Millionaire deceives worker by pretending to be poor," was the headline that appeared in all the local newspapers. The Sunshine Children's Foundation became a circus, with reporters trying to interview Ember, who refused to talk about the subject. Dominic returned to the penthouse, but couldn't stop thinking about her. Oliver tried to cheer him up, but it was useless. "Boss, you haven't eaten in 3 days, said the butler, worried. "I'm not hungry. At least take a shower. You smell like failure." "Thanks for the honesty, Oliver." "You're welcome. Now tell me, what are you going to do to win the girl back?" Dominic looked up, surprised. "You think there's still a chance?" "I don't know." The butler shrugged. "But I know you've never given up on anything in your life. You're not going to start now." That afternoon, Dominic made a decision. He put on his Dom clothes for the last time and went to the foundation. Ember was in the courtyard playing with the children, but when she saw him, her face closed. "What do you want here?" "To talk." "We have nothing to talk about." "Yes, we do," he said, approaching. "First, I want to ask your forgiveness." Request denied. "Second, I want to explain why I lied. I'm not interested. And third," he continued, ignoring the hostility, "I want to show you that my feelings were real." Ember laughed humorlessly. "How are you going to prove that?" Dominic took a deep breath and pulled a sealed envelope from his pocket. "With this." "What is it?" "Transfer documents," he said. "I'm donating half my fortune to the foundation, $100 million, so you can build the community school you always dreamed of." Ember's eyes widened. "Have you lost your mind?" "Completely," he admitted. "For you. I don't want your money. It's not for you. It's for the children. I don't want anything that comes from you," she said, but Dominic noticed she was wavering. "Then don't accept it for me," he said, kneeling on the courtyard floor. "Accept it for them." The children, who had stopped playing to watch the conversation, began to approach. "Uncle Dom!" shouted Tommy. "Why are you on your knees?" "I'm asking Miss Ember to forgive me," explained Dominic. "But did you do something very ugly?" asked Sophia. "I did. I lied to her." "Lying is ugly," agreed Tommy, "but if you apologized—" "Sometimes apologies aren't enough," said Dominic, looking at Ember. "Yes, they are," protested Sophia. "Miss Ember always says everyone deserves a second chance." Ember looked at the children and then at Dominic, clearly conflicted. "It's not that simple, Sophia," she said softly. "Why not?" asked Tommy. "If he really regretted it, how will I know if it's real?" Dominic stood up and walked to her. "Because I'm here," he said simply. "Even after you rejected me, even after the public humiliation, even knowing you might never forgive me. I'm here, and I'll keep being here until you believe my feelings are real." "Dominic, I lied about being poor," he continued, "but I never lied about loving you. That was always true." Ember closed her eyes, fighting her own emotions. "I need time," she said finally, "as much time as you need. And I want you to prove you've changed." "Really? How?" "Work here, at the foundation, as a volunteer. No salary, no privileges. If in 6 months I see that you really care about the children and not just me, maybe we can talk." It was a chance. A small, fragile chance. "I accept," said Dominic immediately. "And no money from your company. The foundation supports itself with community donations. Okay? And no disguised butlers bringing lunch." Dominic smiled for the first time in a week. "I promise." Epilogue. 6 months later, the Sunshine Children's Foundation had been completely transformed, not by the millions Dominic had offered and Ember had refused, but by the hard work of volunteers, community unity, and love dedicated to the children. Dominic had learned to change diapers, prepare bottles, help with homework, and most importantly, listen. Listen to the children, listen to the community, listen to his own heart. "Uncle Dominic!" shouted Tommy, running to him. "Look what I drew." It was a drawing of a family, a man, a woman, and several small children, all smiling. "How beautiful, champ. Who are these people?" "It's you, Miss Ember, and all of us," explained the boy. "You're going to marry her and, well, be a real family." Dominic laughed but felt his heart tighten. In 6 months, Ember had been cordial, respectful but distant. They worked well together, but she kept her barriers up. "I don't know if it'll be like that, Tommy." "Yes, it will," insisted the boy. "I know." "How do you know?" "Because she looks at you the way my mom looked at my dad," said Sophia, joining the conversation, "when she thinks you're not watching." Could it be true? Dominic didn't know any more. That afternoon, he was organizing the books in the makeshift library when Ember approached. "Dominic." "Yes?" "Today marks 6 months." His heart raced. "It does. You kept your word," she said, sitting on the reading table. "You worked hard, took care of the children, didn't try to impress me with money. And I need to admit something." "What?" Ember sighed, playing with the ends of her hair. "That I missed you. All these months, even angry, even hurt. I missed Dom." "Dom doesn't exist," said Dominic cautiously. "He never did." "Yes, he does." She smiled for the first time in months. "Dom is you when you're not trying to be someone else. It's you helping the children, you laughing at your own mistakes, you being human." "Ember, I forgive you," she said simply. "And more than that, I still love you." Dominic felt his entire world reorganize. "Even knowing who I really am." "Especially knowing who you really are," she replied, standing up and walking to him. "Because you chose to be this person. You chose to stay here, with me, with the children, instead of going back to your mansions and yachts. It was the easiest choice of my life." "Liar," she laughed. "I know it was hard, but thank you for doing it." When they finally kissed, there among the children's books and colorful drawings, Dominic knew he had found something much more valuable than all the fortune in the world. He had found home. "And now?" he asked, resting his forehead against hers. "Now you're going to meet my grandmother officially," said Ember mischievously, "as my millionaire boyfriend. Will she approve of me?" "Depends," Ember laughed. "Do you know how to play bridge?" "No, but I can learn." "Then maybe you have a chance." A year later, the community school Ember had always dreamed of was being built. not with Dominic's money, but through a partnership between Dean Clean Energy and the local community, where everyone had a voice in the decisions. Dominic never found his biological siblings, but he found a much better family: Ember, her grandmother Rose, the foundation children, and an entire community that accepted him as he was. The night before the wedding, while helping Oliver organize the party details, which would be held in the foundation's courtyard with live salsa music and lots of street food, Dominic looked out the window and saw Ember teaching the children to square dance. "Do you regret anything, boss?" asked Oliver. "Nothing," replied Dominic, smiling. "Absolutely nothing. Not even the lies?" "The lies brought me to her," said Dominic. "But it was the truth that made me stay." And when Ember looked up and waved at him, Dominic knew he had found what he had been searching for his whole life. Not just love, but belonging. Not just a family, but a home. The abandoned boy had finally come home. So did you enjoy this love story full of twists and emotions? If you had fun following Dominic and Ember's journey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and hit that bell. This way you'll be helping other people just like you receive good stories like this one. Your support makes all the difference, so we can continue bringing quality content. Thank you so much for watching until the end.